when you are taking that long-term approach, you give yourself more options and you give yourself the ability to build bigger and better relationships, allow yourself to create bigger and better deals, and to just do better business. So if you're looking at something and all you see is the potential, but you're not realizing like what you have right now, it's hard to go from where you are to where you want to be. So it's really important to have both of them, in my opinion. But yeah, a lot of optimism, a lot of realism, and hope. Those are kind of the three takeaways of stick with one product or service and just sell that to the moon, right? Keep selling it, keep selling it, keep selling it. And then when the people who you're selling that to have other needs that arise, then build out the second thing to serve the existing customers. Two, don't try to just scale things too fast. Like scale the demand.
Yeah.
Like outsell your ability to deliver and then deal with that, right? And then third is be the shovel, don't be the prospector.
And that's next on Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. So, the big question is this. How are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question. And this podcast will give you the answers. Hey listeners and viewers, we have created a tremendous community of bootstrappers, entrepreneurs, and professionals who are ambitious, resourceful, and want to get things done. We brainstorm, support, and help each other out. Come join us. Navigate to bootstrapping.group. That is bootstrapping.group. If you like this video, do not forget to hit that like button now. Or if you want us to improve our content, go ahead and hit the thumbs down button and give us your feedback in the comment section below. Here at Tetranoodle, we are passionate about entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. Every week, we bring you insightful and engaging interviews, tips, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your business or rise in your corporate profession. So if you're new here, please consider subscribing. And do not forget to hit that bell icon so that you are notified when we publish new content. Hello and welcome to this new episode of Bootstrapping Your Dreams Show. Today we'll be talking with Ben Gothard. So Ben is a pretty interesting personality. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's a man of intellect who believes the human race needs to be educated to make progress. He runs his own podcast, Project Egg Show, where he interviews intellectual entrepreneurs to share their experiences and insights. So let's welcome Ben and learn a lot about entrepreneurship and get some wisdom from him.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yes, you bet. We are excited to have you. Now, just to get you started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your experience?
Sure. Do you want the long story or the short story?
Whatever you prefer.
So I'll take the long story because
Sure.
I think that's most valuable. So my experiences really begin and end with family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm extremely grateful and I feel very, very lucky to have been born into the family that I was born into. I think my parents are the most incredible people in the whole wide world. And, you know, I owe everything to them and my grandparents and my family. I was born into a very Jewish family, a very family oriented family, where there's a lot of love and a lot of just happiness. And, you know, I feel very grateful for that. And so growing up, I was surrounded by people and you know, who were very close and very tight knit. And, you know, one of the early experiences that I really remember that helped shape my philosophy on life was my bar mitzvah. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar, in Judaism, when you turn 13, at least for gentlemen, when you turn 13, you have a bar mitzvah. And for me, what that looked like was I spent a whole year studying and preparing for this one day. And on this one day, I read from the Torah, which it's reading a totally different language, but reading out of the Torah is similar to trying to read without vowels. So it's very difficult, right? So you have to really study and learn a lot. And so I studied Torah. I learned the Torah. I led the service, and I gave the equivalent of a sermon, like a speech. And I remember standing up there, 13 years old, after having worked for so long. And I just remember being able to speak to my family and my friends, hundreds of people. And it was just such a profound experience. And it really impacted me at a very deep level. And I realized at that point that when you put in a lot of hard work over an extended period of time and sustained hard work, right? You keep going, you take the long-term approach, that it yields very substantial and meaningful rewards, both during that time period and after the fact. When you reach that goal, both intrinsically and extrinsically, you just get a lot of reward from doing things and from taking on these bigger projects and working through it and seeing it to the end. So that really started to shape my core philosophy of taking the long-term approach to things, of always trying to be and look at things on a larger time horizon than everybody else. It manifested itself in a variety of ways. In the 9th grade, I started investing, and I started to learn about the theory of, or the reality of compound interest, where you put in something and you put in some money, and then that grows, and with interest, but then you reinvest that interest, so you have principal plus interest, and so it grows again, but it's growing at an exponential rate, and it's just building on itself and building on itself over time. And so what I realized was that can and must be, in my opinion, applied to all areas of life, where if we take the long-term approach and we keep building momentum and we keep compounding our progress and our momentum and our gains, then we can set ourselves up for a tremendous amount of success over an extended period of time. And I want to give an example of one of the ways that this is just can be of profound help and service to entrepreneurs, right? We're all in the people business, by the way. I just want to put that out there. And if you look at business, look at money, right? The only way that you can get money is through an exchange. And if you look at at the core, there has to be an exchange. And so there has to be a situation where two people exchange something. So in order for, and you're one of those people, right? Ideally. So you're one of those people. Well, on the other side is another person. So if you learn how to work with people and you learn how to best serve them and best make it make sense for them to exchange their money for whatever you have, then you can make the most money, right? And so we're all in the people business, right? And we're taking the long-term approach here. And so what I would use as the example is taking that long-term approach to the people business. How do you do that, right? Building relationships. And you build relationships and you continue to build that relationship. You invest in the relationship. You take this long-term approach. Well, what happens when you do that? What happens is, over that extended period of time, you can engage people in ways that did not at first appear to make sense, right? So, for example, let's say I meet John and immediately I try to sell John something, and that damages the relationship because I didn't understand really where John was. I was just trying to be very short-term and transactional, right? It doesn't work. It kills the relationship. Instead, if what I do is I invest in John, I invest in the relationship with John over an extended period of time, not only can he be my customer, but he could also be a partner. He could be a partner in business, a distribution partner, a channel partner, an investment partner, like a JV person. He could be a vendor. He could be a supplier. He could be a salesperson. He could be a referral agent. He could be an advisor, a mentor. He could be a mentee, right? So, and he could be all of these things multiple times over the course of a lifetime of a relationship. And so, by the way, if that's Alexa over there. But anyways, when you are taking that long-term approach, you give yourself more options and you give yourself the ability to build bigger and better relationships, allow yourself to create bigger and better deals, and to just do better business. So I'm realizing all this as I'm growing up.
Yeah.
I'm realizing all this as I'm going through life. And in high school, how that manifested itself was I was the president of Mu Alpha Theta, the math club.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge nerd. I love nerds. Go nerds. We rock.
Yeah.
But I was the president of the math club. And I was so fortunate that not only the rest of the students decided to elect me, but I was also surrounded by an incredible team of people. An incredible team of people. And I'm so grateful for them. And through the relationships with them, we were able to be that year was the very first year that my school had ever gone to state for the math competition in the history of the school, right? Because of those relationships, because we took a long-term approach to it. I started the school's mock trial team. My dad's an attorney, so he was also the coach. So that was a really fun, chance to be creative with my dad. I started my school's news show, our weekly radio show. And that was amazing because I was a senior when we started that. And I remember walking through the halls after an episode, and a sixth grader, would come up and he'd stop me and say, "You're Ben from the TV, from the news." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. Stay in school, make good decisions." Trying to be a good role model. I was also captain of the basketball team in junior and senior year. I played cross country, played on the track team, all varsity. And in fact, at the end of my high school career in basketball, and I'm not sure if this record is still there, but by the time I'd finished, I was the highest scoring player in the history of the school in basketball, right? And so all these things I realized, if I apply this long-term approach to it, then I could be successful and I could do it, right? Because I wasn't just trying to get in there and do something very short-term and transactional. And I was remembering all these things that I had learned through the journey, right? So fast forward to college. Fast forward to sophomore year in college. I was originally pre-med. Thought I was going to be a doctor. I saw some blood, realized I don't like the sight of blood, decided to switch to finance. And I figured if I'm seeing blood in finance, I'm doing something wrong. Yeah. So switched to finance, and that was sophomore year. Well, the fall of sophomore year, I got 2 phone calls that would change my life forever. The first was with my roommate. He called and asked if I'd help him sell t-shirts. The second was with my dad, who, as I mentioned, was an attorney. And he called and asked if I'd help him with social media, be his intern over the summer. So to both of them, "I'd love to help you out, but don't hire me, hire my company." They're like, "What are you talking about? You don't have a company?" I was like, "Not yet." So I figured it out that you could domicile an LLC in Metairie, Louisiana for $105. Nice. Like, okay. The worst thing that could happen is I spend a couple $100 and I can legitimately say that I'm the CEO of an actual legally legitimate company. That sounded so cool, right? And then I got hooked. Then I was like, oh, wow. Okay, now it's shit. I started managing people's social media accounts. I actually started working with the LSU Department of Finance. That was so cool. That was such an experience. It was just fantastic. And so I started realizing, wow, there is actually nothing that is distinguishable between somebody like you and I, or if you're listening to this, to you, and somebody like Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, or hell, let's go back into, I'm not sure if I can use profanity. I apologize for that, but let's look back into history. Some of the wealthiest men in the history of the world: John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Augustus Caesar, right? Augustus Caesar, the very first emperor of Rome.
Yeah.
The I kind of got off on
No, there
the
is no
train of thought.
difference. Yeah,
Yes,
there are no differences between us and all these big names that we listen to and we recognize every day.
exactly. Thank you very much for that. And so I realized I want to do it. I want to give it everything I've got. I want to try. And I don't exactly know what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
I don't. But I want to try to do something great. And so I started to read. I started to educate myself more. I mean, I was already in school and I was paying attention, but I was started to read books and I started to just devour information. And I started to grow my client base, which was really, really cool. And then, eventually I realized that I had a passion for writing. And so I domiciled my company December 19th of 2014. Well, on July 3rd of 2016, I actually published my very first book called CEO at 20, A Little Book for Big Dreams. And 5 days after that, I started Project Egg. But Project Egg was actually first a Facebook group. It still exists today, a Facebook group. And my reasoning for starting that was, let me build a community of entrepreneurs. Let me listen to their problems and I'll solve their problems with my books. Nice. Okay. That seems like a good idea. And so I started to do it and some incredible people started joining the group. And I realized I don't have all the answers, but a lot of the answers can be found through the wisdom of the people in the group. So I started to interview them. And that is how the show was born. Awesome. And on July 27th of 2016, I actually published my very first episode. And it was, now the gentleman who was a guest, he was amazing. But as far as like the production quality and the quality of my questions and like conducting an interview and being, the show goes, it was horrendous. It was so bad. It's really funny looking back at it and to see, how far the show has come. But it was amazing. It was such an experience. And I was so truly grateful that he would take time out of his busy schedule to talk to little old me. And I was grateful and I loved it. And so I was hooked. So fast forward now to let's fast forward to about the end of 2018. And I'll catch up a little bit. I had published over 10 books, hit Amazon bestseller list in a couple different categories, published at this point over 200 episodes of the show. I've interviewed billionaires, New York Times bestselling authors, Emmy Award winners, just incredible people. Incredible people. I started a couple e-commerce stores. I launched a music festival in New Orleans. And actually, I'll tell you the story of that. Some friends of mine, some of my best friends from high school, we were hanging out one day and we were just talking about a music festival for whatever reason, because we were in a band growing up, and so that was one of the things that always kept us together was music. And I've been playing guitar since the 7th grade, and we were just talking about a music festival, and one of us threw out the idea, hey, why don't we do a music festival? And I was like, let's do a music festival. And then he looked back at me and he's like, let's do a music festival. And so we started to research and we put together a team, and we started reaching out to the university and getting local artists and local musicians. And we got security there and people selling alcohol, people selling food. We had artists come show their wares. We recruited local nerds. Again, I say that lovingly because I'm a nerd. Local nerds to come and set up Super Smash Brothers and some chairs so people could play video games, listen to music. It was amazing. And we pulled it off three semesters in a row. And we called it Finals Fest because 2 weeks before finals is when people really buckle down to study hard. But 2 weeks and 1 day before finals, everybody wants to let loose. So that's when we put the festival. So everybody could come to the festival, go, have a ton of fun, go hard, go crazy at the festival, and then buckle down and study afterwards. And so it was great. We had a ton of people show up. It was so much fun. So we did that. I was part of a startup for a little while where we were trying to build like a trading algorithm, like financial trading algorithm in the stock market. And I figured, okay, I don't really know that much Hebrew. I took a little bit of Spanish in high school, but I didn't really immerse myself in it. So I figured coding, code could be another language for me. And it was really fun for a while. And it happened to fizzle out for a variety of reasons, but it was a lot of fun, right? It was a lot of fun. I did all these different things. Then there was a time in senior year, right? And this is actually 2017, so it's important to the progression of the story, where I had my agency, writing my books and publishing my books, doing my interviews, e-com store, music festival, the startup, school. I kind of had a little bit of a party phase in college. I'll be honest with you, and occasionally I wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
And so, at that point I was like, no, I'm too much. Let me just focus. I need to focus on something.
Sure.
And so I decided to really focus hard on my show.
Awesome.
And it just so happened that I had to get surgery on my shoulder right as I made this decision to go all in on the show. I had to get surgery on my shoulder. So I graduated at the end of 2017, and the beginning of 2018, I had this surgery. And so, because you have a show also, clearly, but if you're down one shoulder, one whole arm, it's really hard to like do all the things that you need to do to successfully put on your show. So for about 6 months, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And it was just one of the most frustrating periods of my life, because I go to the gym all the time. I love to be outside. I love to be active. And I love to do stuff like this, and I love to work, and I love to be to create value and to be valuable and to achieve. And I couldn't do it, and I felt so just it was just frustrating, and I felt I was sad. I couldn't do what I wanted to do, and so I just focused on recovering, getting to the point where I was healthy again. And at the end of that 6 months, I was like, all right, I need to get back into it and jump in with 3 feet. I don't even have 3 feet, but jump in with all my feet. And so what I did was I went with some friends of mine to Colorado, and we went to Colorado Springs, and we went and camped for a couple days, and then we hiked Pikes Peak, which is a 14,000 foot mountain, one of the tallest in the United States of America. It's the highest that I had ever climbed. And so it was a 13.7 mile hike one way. And it took me 9.5 hours, but I got to the top of that. When I got to the top of that mountain, first of all, it was beautiful, and I love being in nature, and it was like meditation going up there. But when I got to the top of that mountain, it reaffirmed what I had always believed, which was that you could do anything that you want. If you put in the work, you take the long-term approach, you invest in yourself, and you invest in people. And because I was going with people, so we all had to be ready. We had to invest in ourselves, get our trained to be able to go up there, work as a team to get up there, pack the specific supplies we needed. So it was a long-term thing, a lot of preparation. But when you do all these things, you take the long-term approach, you could do anything that you want.
Yeah.
And I knew it, but it reaffirmed it. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm in. I'm all in again on my show. And that really fired up this passion, or refired up this passion for the show. And I started getting on the schedule of posting a new episode every day. Started really to build out my team to the point where I could focus on building the relationships. I could focus on the things that I'm really good at, and really turn it into something that is, in my opinion, something that's beautiful and it's very meaningful, and that can profoundly impact the way that people operate and the way that people think, and how how people perceive the world. And I believe conversations have the power to do that, which is why I'm so grateful that you'd have me on the show today. And so as this is all happening, that's when it really started to click that I'm not a podcaster. I mean, I am, but at my core, I'm not a podcaster. I'm in the people business, right? That's when that really started to click at this point. And so what that has now led to is this desire to be, to immerse myself in the people business and to be as proficient as I can and to excel and achieve as much as I possibly can in the people business, which again manifests itself in a variety of different ways, whether that's putting together deals, structuring partnerships, creating content, working with people, figuring out ways to add value, to be helpful, right? And so now, today, that's really where I focus my time, is the people business, is connecting with people, creating with people, and personally, I've published a little bit of poetry. I've started to write down, and I finished 2 volumes, but I'm moving on, and I'm already thinking about the 3rd of philosophy. Because I want to really document how I think and organize it in a way that could be really helpful to people, because I'm not saying that the way I think is the right way to think, but my intention is that if I'm thinking about these things, other people, I'm sure, are going to think about these things, and maybe something that I write, or maybe some way that I think, could help other people organize their thoughts, or maybe they could take something out of that that's helpful to them. So that's really where my time goes today. I'm again, none of this would have been possible without my parents and my family, because I didn't mention, but throughout the whole story, they've always been there, with love and support, and wisdom and guidance, and none of this would have been possible without them. And I'm infinitely grateful to them for everything in my life.
Nice. Pretty interesting story. Thanks a lot for sharing. Now I noticed, a lot of these things transpired from your way of thinking in terms of the positive outcome, or maybe not even the positive outcome, but just looking at things in a positive manner. Will you agree with that, or is there something else underneath, like at the root level, when you think about doing something or accomplishing something?
I think naturally I'm a very, very optimistic person. And whenever I see, meet a new person, or come across a new piece of information, or just create a new connection in my mind, I tend to see the potential, and then to jump 5,000 steps ahead, and to say, okay, what can this become? So what I really work hard to do is I try to not be grounded, because I always want to shoot as high as I possibly can, but to try to bring in a sense of seeing things for what they are and what they could be. Because if you're looking at something and all you see is the potential, but you're not realizing like what you have right now, it's hard to go from where you are to where you want to be. So it's really important to have both of them, in my opinion. But yeah, a lot of optimism, a lot of realism, and hope.
Cool. All right. And what will you say when you come across people who say something along the lines of, I don't have the resources to get started. I don't know what to do. I don't know. It's not going to work. This is not for me. Whatever, excuses they come up with. So what do you have to say to them?
You're right. If that's what you think, then you're right. Or you could choose to think differently. And you could choose to think, instead of, I don't have the resources to do this, shift it to, how can I get the resources to do this? Or, I don't know how to achieve that. Instead, think, how can I achieve that? What steps do I need to take to achieve that? Because look, in the beginning, and frankly, a lot of the times along the way, you're not going to know what you're doing. You're not going to have the resources to do it. That's fine. Figure it out. We're very smart. Like we're incredibly intelligent creatures. Like we're human beings. We're a dominant force on planet Earth. And we didn't get that way by accident. We got that way because we're extraordinarily intelligent. We are very, very smart. So we can figure it out. But if we don't control our thoughts and control our thinking and aim our brains and aim our focus on constructive thoughts, then yeah, you're right. Because if you think that you can't do it, then you're right. But if you think, how can I do it? Ask yourself better questions. Let your brain solve better problems, then you'll get better outcomes.
I think you're right in what you said. You are right in whatever you think, but what I find is, this is not a specific exception that people think negatively. I think the general public, they have been forced to adopt this thinking of lack lack of resources, lack of time, lack of everything, and they systematically sort of start thinking negatively, or they get bogged down with a lot of environmental things around them. So to your point, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We are highly intelligent, we are adaptable, and look at the history of humankind. Like we have sort of occupied this whole planet like no other species has, and we have survived so many events that could have wiped us out, right? So this paradigm of thinking positively, I think is very important, and we need to spread that message and make sure that people understand there is no obstacle that can be overcome by hard work, positive thought, and sort of applying yourself and implementing things.
Absolutely. And I just want to push back on one very, very small thing that you said that I think has a lot of repercussion, right? I believe you said something to the effect of people have been forced to think in terms of negativity, or forced to think some way or another that's not helpful to them.
Sure.
I don't think people are forced to do it. I think people are pressured, maybe, or people are highly encouraged, but you can't force somebody to think something. People have to choose to think that. And this is just my opinion, right?
That's an interesting turn of conversation, because I want to touch upon this. Like, in my opinion, I do think people are forced to think certain way, just because, even while growing up, not a lot of people grew up in kind, loving families. Not a lot of people have, supporting students in school. A lot of people go through bullying, both at school, at home, and all these situations at a young, tender age, they tend to shape your mind in a very negative way. And since you don't have the ability to think on your own, and your power is basically dependent on other people, all these foundations that are laid down in your childhood, they actually create a very powerful force for you to think certain way. So, I mean, this is again, from my personal experience, and a lot of other people who I talk to who have gone through this kind of a similar situation. They share their experiences, and that's why I'm using the word force.
I see what you're saying. So what I believe that I'm hearing is you're saying sometimes there are forces at work that influence people to think a certain way, and I totally agree.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. Where I think that it's important for us all to really focus on, or all of us to really take responsibility of, is becoming aware of what those forces were, so that we can go back and identify those things that are going on inside of our minds, inside of us, and we can correct those. We can correct that thinking, and we can then take control of that and say, okay, well, maybe before I thought this certain way, but now I'm aware of that, and now I'm choosing to think a different way, right? And because there are so many people who are faced with so many challenges, and I'm not trying to discount that at all. But what I'm saying is, if we want to put ourselves in the best chance, give ourselves the best likelihood to be successful and to move forward and to get the things that we want, we have to tackle that. We have to take responsibility for that. And we have to go back and we have to course correct our thinking, because if not, we're leaving ourselves at a disadvantage. I'm not trying to say, anything against anybody that's gone through anything difficult. And I truly admire the courage of people like that. I truly admire that. And I wish you the best of luck. But I think it's important to give ourselves the best chance of success. We do have to take ownership of that and say, okay, this is how I thought before. Let me alter that because it's the best for me, right? It's like self-preservation at that point.
I completely agree. And I think the important message to take here, because, what happens is we get into this circle of thinking negatively, and we keep getting engrossed in these negative thoughts as we have to face the world. But just the realization that, these thoughts are under our control. And as you said, we can go back and correct those thoughts and understand why they happened. There was a reason for that, and accept it or let go or whatever. And not only that, but also train our mind to deflect the negative thoughts in the future, because we only learn from our experiences in the past, but this learning can be applied to the future as well. So this important message that these thoughts are under our control, not the other way around, I think that's the very important message that has come out of this conversation.
Absolutely. And the beauty of that is once we do alter those thoughts and we get on the level of consciousness that we want to be and that we need to be, what happens is it's really, really cool and it's really interesting. We start to notice opportunities around us that a lot of times have always been there. But because we were thinking at this level before, and now we're up at this level of thought, of consciousness, of awareness, now we see those opportunities and now we can act on them. And so what's interesting to me is once we get our minds right and we start thinking in a way that's productive and that's helpful and the most productive and the most helpful to us, then that pathway, that runway to achieving your goals, chasing your dreams, getting to where you want to be, being successful, et cetera, that rapidly just takes off at that point. And you go from 0 to 100 really, really quickly, right? Because you're in a state of mind that is conducive to getting to those things instead of being caught up in things that aren't helping you get there. Now you're in this place where everything you're focusing on is helping you move forward and get to that place.
It's quite interesting, when you watch, a movie like Secret, it doesn't really make sense. But then when you start to apply that and when you see things happening unfold in front of your eyes, it's like magic. It's like, you put your life on almost on autopilot and things start to happen and you don't even realize how did it come about, right? So it's an interesting phenomenon, and it's I think a lot has to do. I mean, the root is positive thinking of all this, and great conversation. Now, tell me about your journey a little bit. Like, obviously, you have accomplished a lot, but you must have faced some challenges. You must have faced some failures along the way. Can you recall any that stood out and maybe taught you a lesson, or it was tremendously difficult to overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost is being Jewish. There are a lot of people who they just don't like me because of who I am. And like, frankly, that kind of sucks. It's like, well, what if you actually get to know me? I promise I'm not mean. I'm a nice person, And so, but that's one of them. One of them was early on when I had my agency, when I first started to get clients. And this one, I'm so glad you asked the question. This is something that when you're first starting out, this can save you years of time getting to where you want to be financially. Okay. Please listen up. If you're just starting your business and you're trying to get the financial success that you seek, okay, here it is. When I started, And I started getting clients who would pay me for my service.
Mhm.
And I sold that same service to multiple clients. Okay. I made two critical errors. Okay. When I started to sell, I brought on one person to help me out, like an independent contractor that I could sub some of that work to. And he was on my team. He was awesome. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And we're still best friends to this day. And it was great. He would go with me to client meetings. We would rock it. I would pay him. He would help deploy the service, and I could go and get more clients. It was awesome. Two critical errors. One, I tried to diversify my offerings. And two, I tried to bring on 7 more people like that.
Nice.
Okay? Because I thought, oh, I'm crushing it with this one offer. Let me just go create a bunch more, and then that'll be great. And then, oh, I'm doing great with this one independent contractor. Let me go out and get 7 more, and it'll be great. It doesn't work like that all the time. Okay? And maybe it will for you. But in my experiences, if I could go back, what I would do is I would stick with that one offering, that one thing that people were saying, hey, you're right. I'm voting for you with my wallet. Yeah. You have found something that is valuable to me. And they're giving you money for that idea that you created, that product that you created. Oh, that's awesome, right? Stick with that one product and sell it until you're at $1 million a day. Just sell that one thing and put all your effort into selling that one thing and deal with problems as they arise. Okay. You're going to come to a point where you can't do it all yourself. Bring in somebody to help you. That's a great problem to have. Okay. Bring in somebody to help you. Then you're going to eventually need more people. Then bring them on. Okay. But you always want the demand for your service to be the greatest. Like the demand for your service has to be there, and people have to be paying you money constantly, right? And subscription business models are awesome, right? That cash flow is critical. Okay. What happened was I was then at 8 people that I was trying to manage at that time. I was not the leader that I needed to be to pull that off. I did not properly vet all those people. It ended up imploding the company.
I see.
For a long period of time. Okay. And it was just bad. And then on top of that, I was trying to have 2 main product offerings at once. Right. And here's another distinction. The first product offering that worked was, imagine it was like selling a shovel, right? If you're going for, in the gold rush, the people who made the most money were not the prospectors going for the gold. It was the people selling the shovel, right? It was the tool. Be the tool. Be the tool. Like Google is a tool. Be the tool, right? So the tool was, I would manage people's social media, right? They had already figured out how to create content, okay? But they did not want to take the time to constantly post. So all I did was, I said to them, hey, let me save you time and money by posting this content for you. And I'll come up with the calendar. I'll post it. I'll do a nice caption. I'll do some nice hashtags. I'll tag the people who are in the posts because it was relevant to the post. And that way, the people who you're already paying and you've trained to do a specific job don't have to take away time from their job to do this one thing. Right? So I was saving him time and money. And that was useful to him. And there was no way, besides just not doing it, there was no way that it could fail, right? All I had to do was post, okay? What I sold was a number of posts per week, okay?
I see.
There's no way that can fail unless you just don't post. It's like, okay, well, if you're not going to be responsible enough to post, maybe you shouldn't be doing it in the first place, or you got to fix something, right? What I then switched to or added in was trying to get into the Facebook ads game.
I see.
And trying to deliver sales. Now, these are 2 critically different things, okay? Facebook ads is a very performance-centric activity, right? you can absolutely fail. You can spend $1,000 and not make anything back. You can spend $10,000 and not make anything back, and then that campaign has failed. I mean, you can gather data and there are nuances there, but for the sake of keeping it simple, it's a performance-based activity. Okay, so you have to prove that it's working, and then there's the whole part of, how do you charge for it? It's more complicated. Then you have two different things going on. And look, whenever you're listening to this, regardless of whether or not social media is still a thing or Facebook ads are still a thing, just keep in mind, if it's being the shovel, being the tool where you are guaranteeing something that you can deliver on.
Yeah.
You can take 100 pictures in a month, just as an example. You can type 1,000 words in a period of time. That you can deliver on that for a fact, versus trying to guarantee a certain number of sales. That involves other people. That is that's not a definite thing in most cases. Okay, so in my opinion, it is a much easier route to take to not go the performance route. Go the shovel route, not the performance route. So those are kind of the three takeaways of stick with one product or service and just sell that to the moon, right? Keep selling it. And then when the people who you're selling that to have other needs that arise, then build out the second thing to serve the existing customers.
Cool.
2, don't try to just scale things too fast. Like, scale the demand. Like, outsell your ability to deliver and then deal with that, right? Cool. And then 3rd is be the shovel, don't be the prospector.
Awesome. That's great advice. Thanks a lot for sharing. And I didn't even realize we are way over time, but it has been very interesting conversation with you. So I think it will be good to bring you back for another interview if you have time. But thanks a lot for being with us today and sharing your thoughts and wisdom and telling us, your amazing life story. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And I would just like to leave one last parting thought, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
To everybody who's watching and listening, whatever time this is, whatever year this is, whatever's going on in the world, there will always be a chance for you to create something amazing with your life. There is always room for you to be amazing. And it is my belief, my opinion, that it is our moral obligation. We owe it to the world to figure out what that thing is and to do it as amazingly and as much as we possibly can, because you don't know how important you are to the world, to other people, to humanity, because the things that you can give and the things that you can create and the things that you can do, I promise you it will amaze you. I promise that.
Yeah. Great.
But it could also profoundly impact the way that the world works and that humanity goes about living their lives. So please do what it takes. Pay the price. It's worth it.
Awesome. Great thought. Thank you so much for sharing. And with that, thanks a lot. And that's all for now. Until next time. And if you're an existing or an aspiring tech entrepreneur, then I invite you to check out my new online workshop, Bootstrapping Your Tech Startup Dreams. Go to bootstraptechstartup.com and sign up for free. I want to make sure that more successful and sound decisions are made every day in your tech projects. Let's start finding solutions to your problems. So go to bootstraptechstartup.com and I look forward to helping you with your tech projects. If you want more engaging videos and insightful interviews with industry's thought leaders, then check out other videos we have picked for you. The link is right there. And if you want to be notified about our new content, please do consider subscribing to our channel.